Hi everyone, I'm Damien.
And I'm Jeremy.
Welcome to the Suburb Data Podcast, where we cover everything from property investing to expert busting. If you're new here, we share our personal and professional experiences from over 20 years in the game. So you skip the mistakes we made and go straight to property investment success. Jez, we made it. Episode 50.
Yeah, it seems really quick, but it was over 2 years, wasn't it?
Over 2 years. So what we've learned and where is the market heading? So first episode was launched, do you know when?
I don't.
7th of November 2023. So it's, we really appreciate everyone listening to us, growing the channel. I think we've got over 2,000 YouTube subscribers, which is fantastic. I don't know about the Apple or the Spotify, but I've been actually listening to the podcast on Spotify. I get my little notification now and go for a walk. Got a bit of the audience there. Beautiful. So, Jeremy, what's changed since episode 1? And actually, before I dive in, we've got obviously presentation content, which we love working off. But I encourage everyone, especially on our YouTube, give us a thumbs up. We don't ask for a lot, but if we get to maybe 50 thumbs up in the episode, we might go to a weekly episodes. What do you think?
We can knock out. There's a lot more content coming.
A lot more content. So if we get 50 likes, we'll pivot to a weekly schedule. So we'll put the hours in and do some more marketing. What do you think?
Yes.
Alrighty. So let's maybe start, over the last 2 years, what's changed? So recently, I'd say 1st of October, we've just seen the Australian government 5% deposit scheme. So we'll bring it up on the screen, but the whole idea is that if it's your first home or if you have never owned a home over the last 10 years, you can go in with a 5% deposit and get 95% from the lender. So instead of paying any lender's mortgage insurance, and you have to live in the property, it can't be an investment, but let's say you buy in Sydney or regional Sydney for, let's say, $1 million, you can go in with 50 grand, for example.
Wow.
Yes.
So typically lenders don't give 95%, do they? So this is only if it's backed by this government scheme.
Government scheme. So typically it's around that 88% is like that sweet spot when you're buying like an investment. It'd be 88% and then you plus LMI, because sort of above that 88% lending, that's when lenders' mortgage insurance can get quite pricey. Now, if it's on an investment, you go to that 88%, pay LMI. It's typically deductible over 5 years, so you can talk to your accountant about that. But it normally gets bolted onto the mortgage. So I'm a big fan of, especially if you're buying your first investment, paying lenders' mortgage insurance, because you get in the market a lot quicker. And especially in a moving market, like if you're looking at Darwin now, certain pockets of Melbourne, they're growing by $8,000 to $10,000 per month. Yeah,
you're just leveraging more, aren't you?
You're leveraging more. It gives you
the opportunity to leverage more.
Now, I'll bring it up on the screen, actually. So we've got, as you can see on the screen, we've got, it's changed from the 1st of October 2025. So if you go down, property price cap. So previously, for example, in the capital city, New South Wales, the price cap was $900,000. Now it's going up to 1.5. So you can go in with $75,000. Obviously, you're going to have to pay stamp duty too, so you have to factor that in depending on whatever state you're purchasing in. But even Victoria, like that 800,000 has increased to 950. So you can potentially buy in with a lot less cash. And then like Queensland, up to $1 million. You've got regional markets, WA, you've got up to 850. So again, this is only if it's your owner-occupier.
Right, yeah, not for investors.
Not for investors. So it goes on and on. We can leave this link in the bio. This is from Housing Australia, I think .gov. But yeah, definitely, what do you think about this? I think it'll definitely bring more competition into the market, which is going to lead to that higher price growth. So it's interesting that the government have brought this in, but it's definitely going to be pushing a lot more prices up.
Yeah, well, someone asked about this. I was doing a presentation the other week, and they asked what's going to happen. And there is so little historical data, I can't really say for sure. All I can do is assume, and I assume, like you do, that it'll put more pressure on prices to go up. But the thing that bothers me, I mean, every couple of years, maybe every year, we hear more of these schemes to make it easier and easier for people to get into the property market. And some of these people should not have a mortgage. And there's a reason why the banks don't touch this kind of borrower. And they are running a business. They need to make a profit. The government doesn't need to make a profit. So they can take on this risk with taxpayers' money. And I think we're just getting closer and closer to that subprime lending crisis like they had in the USA. We're just getting closer to that edge. At some point, we've got to say, no, you can't have a mortgage, you can't have a property. And that calms the market. There is less demand, prices don't go up as much, and everything balances out. But, yeah, we're getting to that point where we could have our own little subprime lending crisis.
Well, I'm not sure what would happen. So let's say you bought a property at, let's say, $1 million and you've gone to 95%, and then let's say it drops to 950 as an example. So that LVR is at 95%. It's maybe like 98 or 90, like it's increased your loan to value asset ratio. And then you lose your job or something happens, and then all of a sudden, what would happen? The government would most probably do a quick fire sale to offload that property, but then there's still going to be a shortfall, the buying and selling fees, and who's going to have to pay that shortfall? I'm guessing the taxpayers. So to me, it's obviously just a win vote scheme, like trying to keep, it's definitely, that's what it is, because the government don't want to slow things down, do they? They want to ramp things up. They want more transactions, more stamp duty, more income tax.
Yeah, what they want is to be in power. So like you said, it's a vote-winning scheme. Like the solution, of course, is supply, but they're not addressing supply. It's not easy to address supply. It is a lot easier to just spend some taxpayers' money on increasing the demand.
I think where it does help, though, is like, let's say you're living in like the capital cities, and let's just use Sydney as an example. You're living in, let's just say, like a one-bedroom unit, and you're paying $700-800 a week without a parking spot. You've got a really high-paying job, but you're really struggling to get in front. Like, you're earning a good income, but it's just so hard to save. And you might have, like, let's say $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 saved up. You could then get in without paying any lender's mortgage insurance. You can avoid any stamp duty. So if it's your first like home that you're purchasing in New South Wales, you can get in for real cheap and lock yourself an actual asset. So I think it's definitely going to help if you're really struggling to save up your savings. You've got a good income, because they're still going to look at serviceability. At the end of the day, they're not going, here's 95%. They're going to be making sure that you can actually service.
Yeah, it's just for that case you mentioned.
That's
where
right.
You lose your job.
And I actually think it's a bit of a strategy depending on where you're at, like especially Darwin. If you're living in Darwin or you're living in Melbourne, these markets that we're starting to see some movement, a lot of the markets are moving, which we'll shortly show in the slides, which we're going to go through. But it's it's very interesting. I think it can really help, wouldn't it? Like, imagine that, avoiding stamp duty and getting in with 5%.
Yeah, it's I just get worried when it's sort of free money.
But you're just going to make sure that you're saving well. You've still got the buffers behind you. You don't go in and you got no money left over after you purchase.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move over to point 2. What's changed? So more interesting data. But I'd say emotion obviously still drives a lot of decisions for a lot of investors. Obviously, our podcast, we're very heavily data focused. Like, that's our core business. And I know that you want to spend more money, more time, and more funds to grow the algorithm, but
all the time.
It's been very consistent. I've been, keeping an eye on it all the time. But
yeah, I think that we've moved from just emotional investing, or the equivalent of guesswork, to now looking for some data that will give us the right emotion.
And the thing is, we're not shy about, like, you and I, we prefer the bigger style blocks, the sort of reno ad potential, where some investors might just want to buy something that's already been renovated. There's obviously pros and cons to that, but I think just let the data drive your decisions. Look back in 12, 18 months' time and watch that capital growth happen.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes the big difference. Capital growth just seems to trump everything else.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up DSR 3. Like, we've obviously had a lot of comments on our pay per use, and look, it's not perfect. There's a lot of bugs at the moment.
Just to clarify, this is the new website, suburbdata.com.au.
Correct, yeah.
Where DSR 3 is published.
Look, we are working behind in the background to make the tool as good as possible. We have been getting a lot of comments, some positive, some negative, but at the end of the day, like, I think that DSR 3 is that main algorithm, and the only thing you can do is just test it. stop your subscription on DSR data, give suburbdata.com.au, give it a go. And
someone asked me the other day, why should I go to suburbdata.com.au? I'm currently a DSR data subscriber. And I started going through some of the features, but really the big difference is it's got DSR3. And I did some calcs. If you were to buy a $500,000 property by choosing a location, okay, so here's all right, so DSR3 is worth $40,000 more than DSR Plus. How did I come up with that number? So just looking historically, doing some back testing, I looked at the top 100. Every month there's a top 100 by DSR Plus, which is version 2, and a top 100 by DSR 3. Now, if you were to just randomly choose any suburb in either of those two top 100s, how would that have performed over the next 5 years looking at all of historical data? And you would have had better capital growth with DSR 3. Obviously, it's an improved algorithm. So if you were to buy a $500,000 property, after 5 years, you'd be better off by $40,000. So why would you change from a website, one website to the other? Well, there it is. It's measured in the tens of thousands of dollars, and that's just from randomly choosing anywhere in these top 100. And that's just without any of the additional features that the new website has, more data and heat maps and things like that. So, yeah, it really does, like you say, come down to the data. And, when you're paying only hundreds of dollars for data that puts you in a better position by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands in a few years' time, it just shows how absurdly cheap data is.
I think it just takes I think maybe a little bit of time to get updated. So once you get familiar, like I only obviously use it. I don't use DSR data much at all, but it's like there's going to be more flexibility and we are spending more time. We're going to update the UI. So things are happening. So we just urge everyone to be a bit patient. But like I said, if you are looking at buying a market, worst case scenario, spend a couple dollars, go to Market Metrics and look at the DSR3 for the suburb you're going to buy in. So even if you are a DSR data subscriber, you prefer the unlimited use or the subscription base, look at the DSR3 because that's the newest algorithm and it's very consistent. So moving away from that, strategy shifts. Look, I'd say, where was I going with the strategy shifts? I can't even remember.
Rent vesting?
Yeah, I'd say, look, that mostly hasn't changed too much. I'd say what in maybe the major cities, people are a bit more open.
I think, when you hear about all this, young people struggling to get into the market, especially where it's very expensive, like in Sydney, I think rent vesting, it wasn't a thing back in the day, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whereas it is quite well known now. And buying interstate was considered risky 10, 15, 20 years ago because you didn't have all this intel. How can you make a well-informed decision? So that's some edge that the current generation has over the prior generation. You can just rent in Sydney quite cheaply whilst you own in a hot market like you could have bought in Perth a few years ago. Other markets that are starting to heat up, like you said, Melbourne. So I think rent vesting is one of the solutions for getting out of that too expensive market. And you know what? Another thing that they don't factor in this whole affordability is a lot of the modelling just does not – well, it assumes that all the wealthy people that own property right now are going to live forever, but they don't. They die. And there's an inheritance. And where's that go? So someone's going to inherit a large amount of money. They're going to hook up with their partner who's also got an inheritance. I don't really see affordability as being the big deal that people pump it up as being. But anyway, without the inheritance, before the inheritance, people are living longer. Rent vesting is a great way to get into real estate.
Yeah, I think it's been, like you said, it's been around a while, so it's maybe not a huge shift over the last 2 years. I think, like you said, more people are open to borderless investing than going, I'm going to buy in my backyard because there's a new Bunnings coming up and it's going to be fantastic for capital growth. So the other one is, I actually attended a couple of weeks back, actually maybe a month ago now, the New South Wales Fair Trading Property Agent Business Leaders Forum. What a title. New South Wales Fair Trading Property Agent Business Leaders Forum. And actually started, look, I went for about 5 to 6 hours. Look, some of the talk was okay, but I think they've got a long way to go. So with the New South Wales real estate license, if you want to keep your license, you got to do, I think it's CDP points. It's like professional development points you need to do every year. Now, New South Wales have implemented, I think Queensland have just started implementing it. So the idea is that you got to do these hours, and they did a bit of talk on some buyer's agency, which I'll sort of talk through shortly. But the first 10, 15 minutes, a gentleman was talking about how you'd want to be treated. Like, that's what it was about. How do you want to be treated? Like, he was trying to educate people on trying to be a good person or be a trustworthy person as a real estate agent. Okay. Like, yeah, it was just very odd. And then it finished up with I'd say four professionals talking about buyer's agency, like just the buyer's agency industry. And they're pretty much hammering borderless property agent, buyer's agents. They're saying, oh, you should buy in your backyard because we know the area. We've been here a long time. So instead of trying to maybe solve problems with what's going on in the industry, they were sort of trying to bash the industry, which is quite frustrating. It was actually very disappointing. So I think they need to have a look at themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can understand the idea of a buyer's agent that's a local, that's always been there, would know the area well.
The challenge I've got is that they're saying it's the best way. That's where I've got the problem, because they did discuss about people get their licenses in other states, they get mutual recognition. There's not enough governance around that, and that's the problem with having these sort of state licenses everywhere. Like if you've got a license in New South Wales, you can't buy in Queensland unless you get a mutual recognition. So I get it from, I think there's good and bad in everything, and there's most probably some cowboy buyers agents just buying wherever, but I'd maybe feel more confident buying with someone that's following data and going to these markets borderless than buying in my backyard in a unit in Sydney somewhere, for example.
That's right, yeah. So in this buyer's advocacy course, it's a sales agent's course, isn't it?
Well, the funny thing is, so you have to have, like your Cert 4, if you want to run a buyer's agency practice, you have to be a licensed in charge, and that's what that certificate for allows you. So it's a bit complicated. But if you've got a Cert 4, you can run a sales agency, but you can also run a buyer's agency. But within the Cert 4, it doesn't really talk about what areas to invest in, what investment indicators you should look at. It's just a sales course. So you can do this real estate course and then become a buyer's agent. But there's no rule.
Okay,
there's no
hang on
section.
a second here. You're telling me that in the course there isn't anything about, okay, so I'm going to hire a buyer's agent to help me invest. So I'm looking at capital growth, I'm looking at yield. There's nothing on that in the course, and the people at the top of the food chain in this course are actually bashing people who are going to provide that very service. The one thing investors want isn't even in this course, and they're bashing.
They did talk. I think they were more focused on maybe the ones out there that that aren't maybe, they're just rapid fire buyers agents. They're just like throwing things whatever to their clients. They're not really. So like I get that there's good and bad. There's some great borderless buyers agents. Like let's say they might be living in Melbourne, but then they're buying in Darwin, for example, at the moment, or they might be buying in Perth, wherever it might be.
Right, yeah.
But I'd rather that, and they might get someone else to do the walkthrough. I'm totally fine with that if they've been there, they've got those relationships, they've got those networks, because more than likely, if I buy that unit, for example, in Sydney versus buying in Darwin, in a year and a half, which market's going to grow better?
Yeah, follow the data. Yeah.
Look at the numbers, and that's the big gap. No one looks at data. They just...
Yeah, any buyer's agent who is only buying for their clients in their backyard, the areas they're familiar with, straight away that would trigger alarm bells with me. This is an old school buyer's agent who has not embraced the data age and borderless investing. So why would I, even if that was the hot market, would I be comfortable hiring their services. They might talk about things like, oh, you don't want to buy on a main road and you don't want this and you don't want to be close to social housing and all this stuff which data doesn't support. So I would be continually arguing with them. Yeah, it's interesting. I find it a little hypocritical.
I just think, my thing is I urge the New South Wales Fair Trading to really have a hard think about how they can make things be a bit more proactive than bashing.
Yeah.
Especially when we're giving up our time, hours, and just we're listening to this forum that, it was just frustrating. I'm there and I'm thinking, I was in autopilot when I was listening to it.
Yeah, I find it amazing that there's nothing in the course that is exactly what your client wants. I want capital growth. So do they have anything on capital growth? How do you find high capital growth? Anything of that? What about high yield? Oh, I need cash flow. Anything in the course on that?
And it leads to the point, like these old school buyers agents, why do they want to pivot? Because I guess it's hard work. It slows down the revenue potentially. I'm not saying that's what it is, but like you got to learn something new.
Yeah.
So bit on that. So what hasn't changed? So I think we mentioned the old school buyers agents. Heavy marketing. Again, we talk about this a lot. Just be wary. More life coaches and life coach property investment gurus. So again, just keep an eye out, everyone.
Yeah, I saw someone just this week, buyer's agent at the kitchen bench, showing you how to make I don't know what it was, a pancake?
I saw a good one the other day. He's in the barber's, walks into the barber shop and they start showing everything. And it's just like, man, they're trying everything.
Wow,
it gets your attention. It gets my attention for about 3 seconds. And I'm like, block.
Life coach.
All right, so let's jump in.
Just before you get off that life coach thing, that does strip my gears a bit. We work in an industry that is like a big industry. Broadly speaking, it's wealth creation. And a part of that is property investing. And then a part of that is residential property investing. And then a part of that would be data. And that's what I've focused on for the last about 20 years. So when someone asks me a question about mortgages, I say, I don't know. If they ask me about tax structures, I say, I don't know. If they ask me about property data, that's when I can say something. So a life coach is someone who knows everything. They must have been alive for like 200 years.
You know what you can do these days? You get ChatGPT, you talk to it now, and there you go. You just get a little microphone piece and you're...
I would treat a life coach, the only life coach I would respect is someone that's a bit more like a GP. You go to your GP and say, I've got this symptom. And then they say, right, you need to see a cardiologist or you need to see a dermatologist or an oncologist or whatever. That's the only life coach I would accept. They would point me in the right direction. Oh, you need to see a psychologist. You need to see a fitness instructor or a nutritionist or something like that. Someone who's claiming to know everything about life, that's just straight up and down BS to me.
Oh, a lot of it's, I guess, just self-education. Like you want to learn something, you go learn it, don't you? And then you sort of pivot and...
Yeah. Anyway, we've got off the track. What do we know? We know property data. So here's some data.
So I think let's have a look at the market sentiment because I know a lot of people would like, I think, seeing this. So if you do, put a comment in the comment section. But let's go around the ground. So back in November 23 when we had our first episode, let's have a look. Perth was at the front. So I had a DSR 3 of around 80, followed by Darwin, Adelaide, Brisbane, Canberra. So you can see then Melbourne, Hobart, and then Sydney. So, and then we know the last 2 years Perth has had a decent growth run. So that typical value there was as of November 2023. So a definite pick up. And there was 371 suburbs that it's captured within that significant urban area. Darwin's smaller, 66. The biggest one there we've got is Sydney, which is 707. And interestingly, there's more dwellings in Melbourne, but less suburbs.
So they have bigger suburbs, I guess.
Bigger suburbs, correct. But interestingly, Perth was at the top and it was the biggest moving market. We know Darwin has picked up a lot over the last 12 months, but definitely the pressure was on there roughly about 2 years ago, but I think it's only started moving really that last 12 months, correct?
Yeah.
Now let's go to now. So let's just September 2025. So this is the latest data. We release the data, maybe on the 5th or 6th of every month, typically.
Yeah, around the 6th.
And Darwin's overtaken Perth now. So Darwin's at the top, again, 66 suburbs within the significant urban area. And we've also got, so what we're looking at here is the count of suburbs within the area, the bigger cities, the demand to supply ratio 3 score, the average of those suburbs within the significant urban area, statistical reliability, how reliable is the data, and things like typical value, gross rental yield, vacancy rate, stock on market. So interestingly, stock on market really tight across the board, and this is for houses only. So I know that I think pretty much, is it coality? Is that what it's called now?
Cotality.
Yeah, cotality. What is coality? Apologies for that.
Yeah.
But they, I think they do a combined. They look at sort of houses
and units.
Units, where we're just looking at houses here. Vacancy rate's really tight. So to me, there's just going to be constant pressure in a lot of these markets. But we know that Darwin is definitely seeing pressure. Parts of Melbourne doing really well. So like Melbourne has gone from a DSR 3 of 45, and overall it's around 58, but there are pockets with really high DSR 3 scores. So don't think, oh, Melbourne's low. We are seeing some activity there. And we've been doing some purchasing for our clients. We're also looking at Darwin at the moment. Perth has had a big run, but still pretty good yields. Canberra's picked up a bit, but I'd say that's the biggest shift. Darwin's at the front. I'd say Melbourne's picking up. Brisbane's dropped off. Oh, no, Brisbane's sort of consistent. But again, we are seeing some nice price push. But yields, again, I think is the big driver at the moment there.
What I see there is the most amazing difference is the yield for Darwin versus the rest.
5.6. And look, there's commentary. I'd say the only thing is with Darwin is just the insurance premiums are a little bit higher. The council rates are pretty consistent across the board, but I would say that the insurance premiums are a little bit higher there. But then you might go to areas like Cairns, for example, and then the insurance premiums are higher and the council rates. So from a cash flow perspective, Darwin is where I think a lot of investors are heading, but properties aren't even hitting the market a lot of the time in those markets. And the ones that do, there's a lot of visibility and they have a lot of demand. So, but yeah, interesting. Everywhere is pretty strong. Like Hobart, I'd most probably avoid. Certain pockets of Adelaide, I think, are okay. You know, Sydney obviously being the big major city, the high performer, really good. But interestingly, the best statistical reliability is Perth and Melbourne. But again, they're pretty consistent across the board, aren't they?
Yeah, well, if that large aggregation, state capital, you're going to get some reliable data.
Yeah, Canberra's, I think, picked up a little bit too. It's gone from like 51 to 60. So again, most probably hasn't had a massive price growth over the last couple of years. Now, let's move over. So let's have a look at the last 3 years. So a market in Perth, Gosnells, I think it's a local government area there, has picked up around 83% the last 3 years.
Wow.
You've got Point Pirie, I think that's what it's
Port Pirie, yeah.
You got
South
73.
Australia.
And you've got, this is the count of suburbs. I've got like 11 suburbs. And then, for example, in Rockhampton, there's 16 suburbs. This is the average typical value now in that back, like that last column that you see. But 69% growth, 66% growth, 64%. So really strong growth. Townsville's had 54% the last 3 years. So these markets have absolutely been flying. Pretty good price points too. Like you've got...
A lot of them are in Western Australia. So.
Yeah, 330, 620, 580. So some of these markets are still affordable. It just depends on how much more that they've got to go. And that's where you can look at the data. But I think it's nice to see a snapshot over the last 3 years. And look, if our viewers want to see more of this, we can publish data. You know, we can do a monthly wrap up if that's what everyone wants to see. So again, leave a comment and we can do that. But interesting to see that growth. And look, there's been markets that have had negative growth. So you'd be burning if you use the buyer's agent and you've gone stagnant or backwards the last 3 years where you could have gone into these high flying markets. Anything to add to that, Jeremy? I like always looking at the data.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, key lessons from the first 50 episodes. So I'd say data matters. But only if you understand the story behind it. I think this is more around anyone can show you a report and show you data points, population growth, income growth, infrastructure. But to me, that doesn't mean a lot. There are other algorithms or numbers that you can look at to put more in your favor when you're going into a pocket.
Yeah. I guess it's knowing what data to look at.
And I think like one we've mentioned before is like infrastructure. Okay, it might be a nice quiet area and then you've got a big new shopping center that creates noise. That could actually detract from that property value.
Yeah, that's one of the issues with infrastructure. It's very hard to tell until it's actually built what impact it will have on demand. And once it's built, well, you've got other things to measure demand, like days on market, stock on market for supply, auction clearance rates, all those sorts of things.
The other one I'd say is fear of missing out. So, and free data can be very costly.
Yeah, the most expensive data is the free data.
Well, a lot of the time they'll, like these firms out there will say they've got the data or they've got their own algorithm, but you have to pay $30,000 for their buyer's agent service to find the area to invest in. So I think always do your own research. No one's going to look after your money like you. Best investors build frameworks and tune out the noise. I think this is a big one. Like just work out what your strategy is first. A lot of people will just jump to buy a property, but bring it back to like, what are you trying to achieve personally? Like life goal wise, are you trying to retire early? Do you want to reduce your workload? Do you want to travel more? Like really find out first what you actually want and then get your money working for you so you can build that passive income to give you the flexibility that you want. Anything to add to those points, Jez? How about key lessons for you for the first 50? Anything that you can think of the top of your head? If not, that's okay.
Well, the ones that I've liked the most have been the ones where we've shown some pretty cool data. Strangely, the more popular ones seem to be the more free-flowing, opinionated sort of stuff. But yeah, the ones I prefer are the data-backed ones. And
if there's like certain episodes that people want to listen to, maybe Jeremy and I can have a debate about something. I think we've got to do those type of topics. Or we're obviously going to look to maybe bring on some guests too as we slowly expand.
Oh, yeah, we did that one on the property cycle. How many?
Oh, that had heaps of views. That one, everyone loved to keep commenting on those.
Yeah, it's amazing when you present data, evidence, facts, and it runs into people's beliefs. Creates a bit of conflict.
So, I'd just like to thank everyone for our growth of the podcast channel, especially behind the scenes. Everyone working really hard. Our new studio, thanks Adam to the new studio. So we need to give him a plug. It's just looking fantastic. And everyone comment on the studio if you like the new background or if you think we should put some more books in the background. Recommend any books for us to put in the background. But like, subscribe if you enjoyed our journey. Comment maybe your biggest lessons that you've learned, maybe from our podcast or from the series. And then, like I said, if you want us to go weekly, 50 likes on the YouTube channel. Anything for you, Jez, to finish up? Do you want to thank everyone too?
Yeah, thanks very much, everyone. It's been good fun, and there's a lot more to come.
A lot more to come. So look, subscribe, like, share to the world. Thanks for tuning in, and see you in our next episode. Bye for now, and take care.